Texas is the biggest battleground state.
And in 2020,
we have the opportunity
to turn our state blue
up and down the ballot.
We have the opportunity to expand access to affordable health care, finance our public schools, strengthen our economy, and take meaningful action on gun violence. There's so much more in the United States Senate.
We have the opportunity to pave the way towards a more sustainable future at the Texas Railroad Commission.
We have the opportunity
to elect judges
and the justices
who will restore fairness, equality,
and balance in our courts.
We have the opportunity
to shape the political future of Texas
and repair the broken systems
that disenfranchise working families in our great state.
We have the opportunity to ensure that Texans in positions of power
embrace empathy,
open minds,
and swing open the doors of possibility.
By working together
and uniting behind our shared vision of a more inclusive world,
we will win back our state.
We will win because we have to.
We have to put an end to the hate, the lack of access, and the suffering.
We have to deliver on the fair shot that every Texan deserves.
Our cause,
our movement,
is about the restoration of justice and the expansion of opportunity.
None of this can be accomplished unless we work together.
In order to bring lasting change to Texas,
we must work alongside every down ballot candidate, every activist, and every Texas Democrat
to continue building the largest our state has ever seen.
And in turn, save the entire country.
Join us.
Join us.
Texas is the biggest battleground state in the country. Our Democratic Party is building a future that is focused in equality and prosperity.
Our mission is innovative, inclusive, and hopeful. We are creating a Texas that we can all believe and thrive in.
Some of the boldest Democrats to navigate the halls of Congress have called Texas home, and some of them have even made their mark on the White House.
Texas produces progressives, trailblazers, and steady-handed leaders alike who consistently push the needle on issue after issue.
Our leaders champion the noblest of causes because we believe that our country is stronger when we celebrate diversity, live our values, and inspire unity.
Texas Democrats have built a movement founded on landmark policies and programs that make America one of a kind.
We safeguard our planet and fight for equal rights. We deliver on building an economy that works for all Texans. We defend a woman's right to choose, and we challenge the inhumane policies that set to tear our country apart.
While Texas Democrats may differ in their approaches, each one of them has fought like hell to change the course of history and leave our state that much more equitable.
We are the party that paves the way for the future because we cannot advance as a society until everyone has a seat at the table. Donald Trump can't win the White House without Texas, and we got a plan to defeat him.
We know that the strength and resilience of our movement means that we can overcome any challenge set before us.
We know that we will succeed because what we are fighting for is humane, it is just, and it is truthful.
Every day, little by little, our movement grows and our chants for justice ring louder.
We are shaping the political future of our state and ensuring that everyone has a fair shot at the American dream.
This is what it means to be a Texas Democrat. Because when we save Texas, we save our democracy.
And when we save our country, we save the world.
Hello everybody, and welcome to the Texas Tea with James. You know, in my mind every time there's a theme song that goes on when I sip the cup of tea. But you guys can all just pick out your own music. I'm so excited to have everybody here today. We have an amazing guest joining us. Not only has she been fighting for Texas and Texans for years, but she really shows what true passion and true goddamn grit can get you if you really believe in yourself, if you can get people to really stand up for what they believe in. And I could just not be more excited to have her on my show today. I also have a personal connection with her because she is going to be my next representative, and we're going to learn so much. We're going to be inspired, and if you haven't gotten to the polls yet, this is all it's going to take. Everyone's got to get to the polls. We're in our last week of early voting. We have until Friday in Texas to vote. You can vote any day this week. You can still go today. Most polls are open until 7. Go to mytexasvotes.com to find the closest polling location to you. And remember, it's going to take all of us. Texas is having some amazing people from all over the country help us get Texas blue this year, and it's really up to Texans to make sure that we can carry this out. So again, if you have any problems at the polls, we also have a hotline for you. You can go to call 844-TX-VOTES, and they will be able to help you with anything that you need, whether it be a problem about your ID, if you have questions about what you need to bring to the polls with you, if you are wondering if your ID is still valid, any of that, they can help you with anything. So it's a great number to have on your phone too. Even if you're at the poll, you can call them. They're ready anytime the polls are open, even during the 24-hour polling in Houston, which is very exciting. Let's see, how can I be a Democrat? Special advice. If you want to help the party, we need volunteers. You can go to the Texas Democrats website and sign up for a volunteer shift. We need people calling voters, making sure they have a voting plan, making sure they're ready to go vote before Election Day. So if you want to be part of this team, we want you. You can sign up for as many shifts as you want. We have shifts multiple times a day throughout the election. And we really would appreciate everybody getting involved. You don't have to be in Texas to join our team. You don't ever have to have made phone calls before to do this. It's very easy. You get training on it. 1 second. I'm talking to our guest. She's about to log on. But yeah, volunteering is really the most fun thing to do. Also, if you're feeling a little stressed right now, you're not sure if there's been enough work done, and if you're kind of stirring in the middle of the day and you're like, have I done enough for this? Have I really made sure that people are out there voting? What really calms me down is calling voters. Calling people and having conversations with them about why they're voting, their voting plan, not only makes me happy to help them, but also gives me a sense that, you know, I'm doing my part. I'm not going to look back after the election and be like, what could I have done? Could I have sent that one phone call that really could have helped? You know, if everybody just did one shift, imagine how many people we could guarantee. And if everybody showed up, we will have the results that we want. Texas will turn blue, and we will be able to go into the future in the way that actually represents the people. And I just think it's so crucial that if there's never been a time that you have been involved or you haven't been involved, now's the time. Look, there's pretty much a week left of this election. You have the time to make a call. You have the time to sit down and call someone's grandma who isn't sure if she knows where her polling place is. Maybe the polling place moved. Maybe she doesn't know how to use the internet well. You can help them out. If you voted already, that's great. Have you talked to your family? Have you talked to your friends? this is the time to really make sure that we're all going out. So again, thank you so much for all joining us. We've got just a week left. We're so close. And we are fighting for everything. You know, I don't know if you guys saw that really inspirational Kamala Harris video, but, you know, healthcare is on the ballot. Women's rights is on the ballot. LGBTQ plus is on the ballot. This is not just an election like we've seen before. This is an election that's going to change everyone's lives. And we've seen the motivation. We've been to the protests. We know what the people are feeling. And now we need to make sure our voices are heard by going to the polls. And you can really make an impact by making sure people not only are in your friend circle going to the polls, but you can call people that you've never met that are happy to have you join. And so everyone get out to vote. We're excited because our guest is joining us, and she's going to be the true motivation that we all need. And she really is right. Hey, Wendy.
Hello, how are you, James?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, it is my absolute pleasure. I could not be more excited to have you on my show. So I don't know if you heard earlier, but you're going to be my future representative.
Yay, that's awesome. What neighborhood do you live in?
I live right next to the Capitol, so I kind of live in like an obscure office area, but I swear there's a house here too.
That's fantastic. Good. I'm looking forward to the chance to represent you.
Absolutely. And I can guarantee you this, you've got my vote and I already voted. So
wonderful.
That one you've got locked in.
That's awesome. Good. Now we just need, I don't know, a couple 100,000 more.
Exactly. Well, Wendy, I would love for you to introduce yourself to everybody. Maybe talk about a little bit about what you're standing up for, and then we got some questions, and then we have a little bit of a challenge at the end. Okay. We're going to test your Texas skills.
Absolutely. Well, many of you may remember I was in the Texas State Senate for 6 years. Prior to that, I was on the city council in Fort Worth, which was my original hometown. I live in Austin now. I moved here almost 6 years ago. I founded a nonprofit here called Deeds Not Words. We help high school and college age young women learn how to most effectively use their voices to advocate for change at the local and state level. And now I'm doing something I never thought I would do. I'm running for Congress, and I'm running because I'm a grandmother now. I have 2 little granddaughters who are 4 and 2 years old. They live about 10 minutes away from me, and they are my everything. And I'm fighting for the future I want them to inherit. I want them to inherit a healthy planet that will sustain future generations. I want them to live in a state that has the best reputation for healthcare, not the worst reputation. And I want them not just to go to good schools, I want them to go to safe schools. And for us, once and for all, to do something about gun safety and adopt the kinds of reforms, the common sense reforms that the vast majority of Americans and Texans want to see.
Amazing. Your platform and your policies and your message not only is something that I think really represents Texas and the people of Texas, but it's also something you've been fighting for years. And I think that is so cool that you're going to get the opportunity to really take these ideas to the federal level and represent us in such a great and equality and Texan way. And so I want to start off with actually, I'm glad you brought them up, you becoming a grandmother. Your granddaughters are adorable. And I was just wondering if having them around, what has changed in your ideals of being a public service now with these 2 little adorable grandkids?
Well, first of all, it just helps you keep everything in perspective. You know, they were over just yesterday eating pancakes and bacon, and we went to the park yesterday morning. And just there's such a leveling force, you know, to remind you to keep it simple and to keep your eye on exactly why races like this one, like Joe Biden's, like MJ Hager's, like our state house races and our judicial races, why they matter so very much, because we're trying to build a future for them, you know, and they will have some of the same challenges I had growing up. They'll have some benefits that I didn't have. But one of the things that I could always rely on was that elected officials who came before me thought I was important enough to invest in my future. And that's just not happening anymore. Our schools aren't getting the funding that they need. Our families aren't getting the kind of support that they need for their children to go to college and realize their full potential and their dreams without being saddled with student loan debt. And we need leaders, once again, to pick up that fight and to determine that it makes sense, not just for the future of our children, but it makes sense for our economic well-being, for us to make those kinds of investments in the livelihood and the success of every person in Texas who wants to make a better life for themselves, whether they're 18 years old or 80 years old. You know, we all have a role to play in that.
Absolutely. And I think that's a really interesting point you bring up too. The resources that you had growing up, you want to increase them. I'd like to talk about your path to where you are now. I know you started, like a lot of us, waiting tables and really getting by. I was wondering if there's something that you learned during your restaurant jobs that you still use today as this public servant.
So I'm inherently shy, and I've learned there's a difference between being shy and being extroverted. I'm shy, but I'm also extroverted. I draw energy from people. But waiting tables really forced me out of my shy zone. It taught me how to speak to people that I didn't know, how to connect with people that I'd never had a conversation with before, how to be humble, of course, and to serve. But also, most importantly, it taught me the value of the hard work that so many people are doing in low-wage jobs across this country. I was a single mother. I had a full-time job during the day, working at a doctor's office as a receptionist, and I waited tables 4 nights a week, because that's what it took for me to be able to get by. And honestly, there were days when I wasn't getting by. I, like so many people who are confronting economic challenges right now, I know what it's like to fear keeping the roof over your head. I know what it's like to come home and have your electricity turned off because you couldn't afford to pay the bill. And I learned how hard people work in jobs like our service industry and how underpaid they are. It's just, to me, an abomination, not only that we don't yet have a $15 an hour minimum wage, but that people who work in the service industry are allowed to be paid a sub-minimum wage, even now in 2020. It's just ridiculous. Every person who's working hard deserves to have the kind of income that they can support a family on, a humble, level, of course, but the ability not to fear that you're not going to be able to make ends meet. And I want to be a part of a solution for working people who need someone who's traveled that path themselves and who understands why the support is needed and exactly what that needs to look like. And it's not just about wages. And it's not just about health care. It's about pay equity. It's about paid family leave. It's about paid sick leave. And of course, it's making sure, as I said a minute ago, that we're increasing the minimum wages. And then finally, sorry to be so long-winded on this, but as a working woman who was really challenged with finding affordable quality childcare for my little one when I was a single mom, I just cannot stress enough how important it is that we are paying childcare workers more so that we can recruit people into that industry. We have a real shortage there. 95% of the women who work as childcare providers, or 95% of the workers, are women. They're not paid very well. I think the average pay for a childcare worker is $10 an hour, and yet they're doing the most important thing in the world. And we are the only industrialized country in the world that's not created a priority and making sure that we're putting the resources forward to make affordable quality childcare accessible for every working parent in this country. This is something I really want to dig in on and be a part of bringing a solution forward with.
Well, absolutely. And I also think your story is really passionate about your journey through education. You really are, I think, an example of someone who's been so successful, but really had such a tough path to get to where you actually ended up being. And so that leads me to my next question. So I know you ended up at Harvard Law after your journey, going to community college and then becoming a bullfrog. And I wanted to ask you a question about when you worked with the AIDS community there and your work there. Could you talk a little bit about that? And is there any story that really sticks with you that you still hold on to during your time working with that organization?
Definitely. So I had the privilege of serving people who had been diagnosed with HIV and AIDS when I was in law school. I worked at a legal services center, volunteered as part of a clinical study program that I was enrolled in. And this was back in the early 90s. And if you had a diagnosis of HIV or AIDS, that meant you needed to get your affairs in order. There was no question that it was simply a short matter of time and you were not going to survive this disease. And it taught me so much about the inequities that existed in the law at the time, and quite honestly, still exist to this day. But at that point in time, if you were in a gay relationship, you didn't have any protections of law. If you were in the hospital and you wanted to provide your partner with the capacity to make decisions about your medical care, you couldn't do that legally. If you wanted to write a will and allow your partner to make decisions about what would happen with your very remains or with your physical possessions, you couldn't do that legally either. And my most memorable part of that journey was actually the very first time I argued in a courtroom. And it was on behalf of one of my clients whose loved one had been a client as well. And we were trying to enforce his last wishes against the protests of his mother and father. And they were just in such denial about the fact that their son was gay. They absolutely did not want to honor his wishes about what happened to his remains and his possessions. And we succeeded, but only because I helped them see that they were in for a long journey ahead, because we were not going to give up the fight. And sometimes that's what it takes, right? Is just demonstrating that even if the odds are not in your favor, you're not going to give up. You're going to keep fighting. And if there's anything I love about a Texas Democrat, it's that we know that we won't give up. We're going to keep fighting. The odds used to be stacked against us, but I think all of us would agree that right now they're starting to look a whole lot more in our favor day by day.
Absolutely. And Wendy, if you've shown anybody what a Texas Democrat can do, it's your amazing leadership, and what we've been able to watch you do has, I think, inspired all of us to really realize in Texas, we can stand up and we can really fight for what we think truly is the people of Texas and will truly help the people of Texas thrive. And I just really appreciate all that journey you've had. And I do want to go into that a little bit. So when did you realize the Stand with Texas Women movement really was going to be as big as it was?
I honestly didn't know what was happening in that regard until very, very late into the evening, when the filibuster had been called to an end, but not absolutely ruled to an end. We were arguing the procedural points of order, and I had to maintain the filibuster while we argued it. That's why 13 hours is the more technical reality of how long I stood. But during that procedural debate, when Senator Watson particularly was so just inspiring and so intelligently arguing procedural points of order to try to get us to the midnight deadline, one of my staff members sent a note over to me letting me know how many people were actually watching us live, and that President Obama had actually tweeted out something special is happening in Austin, Texas tonight. And I just couldn't believe it because, of course, all day long I had been just talking for hour upon hour upon hour. And I knew I was surrounded in the Capitol by a great deal of energy and support. I could feel it all day long. The gallery was full. I could tell the Capitol was full. There were people outside on the Capitol lawn. And so I knew that we were in it together. It appropriately became known afterward as the People's Filibuster. And of course, the folks who showed up that night and cried out against an injustice, and the people who actually got that filibuster past the midnight deadline with their voices and their stomping feet, it just showed us all how much power we have if we just decide to show up, right? And showing up can mean that you participate in a peaceful protest, like the one that I participated in working to support criminal justice reforms, and like so many people across this community, this state, and this country did. It can be showing up, of course, and advocating for change in a legislative committee hearing, like so many of our young women at Deeds Not Words do. It can also be voting, though, showing up with your power and owning your singular part in a collective effort to make the kind of change that we want to see. And that's, of course, what we're all engaged in doing right now. Please, 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 if you haven't voted yet, don't stand on ceremony. I can tell you from experience, I used to do this. I used to wait until election day because I just loved the ceremony of going on election day and voting. If ever there was an election where we shouldn't do that, it's this one, because you just can't take the chance that something won't go right. Maybe you forgot your driver's license or something, I don't know, but give yourself time. If the line's too long, for example, you'll have another day you can come back if you early vote. But if you wait until election day this year, A, you may be standing in the longest line of your life. B, you won't be able to correct a problem if one occurs. And C, something might intervene that you may not get to go vote at all. So take power of the next few days, take possession of the next few days, own your power, go vote. And even if you're voting for people you don't think are the perfect candidate, I can assure you I'm not the perfect candidate, but I'm going to try my best for you. You know, even if someone's not perfect, let's make sure that we are expressing our discontent with folks who have been representing us and not doing it well, who've been representing special interests instead of us. And let's show them that people have the power here, not special interests, and we're going to make a difference in our state.
Absolutely. You can head over to mytexasvotes.com. I did it, and I found out there was a polling location, which we actually both went to, Wendy, 0.3 miles away from my house. It was so easy, and I went on a Tuesday morning, flew through the line, and it really is so relieving to have voted. So that way you can get out of the way for other people and also make sure that your family's voted, your friends, your roommates, and I'm so happy. So I actually do want to ask about that as well. Do you remember your first voting experience?
Actually, I'm embarrassed to tell you this, but I'm going to tell you this because I think it's important to be honest about these things. When I was a single mother, I never even thought about voting. Never even thought about it. Certainly never was contacted by anyone about the value of my vote or that it could make a difference. I didn't vote for the first time until I was in law school. That's the embarrassing thing to admit to you. And that means I was in my late 20s. So please don't wait like I did. And that's one of the reasons that I wanted to start Deeds Not Words, is just to help young people understand the extraordinary power that they possess. I mean, one of the things I'm most excited about in this particular election cycle, not only is there a historic turnout in 18 to 29-year-old voters across the country, but Texas is leading in that historic turnout of 18 to 29-year-old voters. And because this is a world that you're going to inherit, and that we're either going to screw up for you or we're going to adhere to what you want to see us do. I would suggest that you make sure we know we have to be answerable to you by coming out in such numbers that politicians going forward will say, gosh, I need to do whatever I can to earn that 18 to 29-year-old vote because, man, do they have power, right? And even better yet, hopefully you'll be running for office yourselves one day soon, and I'll have a chance to vote for you and place your very future in your very capable hands.
Wendy, if you ever vote for me, that will be the peak. I'll be done after that. That's when I'll know I'll have made it. Well, thank you so much for your honesty, and thank you so much for all this time. I'm wondering, do you have a sheet of paper and a pen in front of you?
I've got it.
Okay, so you've been all around Texas. You've been to every county, I'm pretty sure. You've lived in different places around it. So I have a feeling you have a pretty good idea of, what Texas really looks like. But I'm wondering if you can draw Texas.
Oh my God.
All right, and I'm going to do it with you.
First of all, I want y'all to know I'm a terrible artist. And so what this looks like is not going to be anything about my geographic limitations and understanding about my state. It's all going to be my artistic limitations. So
I believe in you. There's so many cool areas of Texas. And I think it's fun that you can move around to different ones. We've got the beach, we've got the deserts, we've got the urban areas. Okay.
I mean, this is really bad, but I can't
Okay,
draw.
you ready?
I just can't draw.
Okay, let's see it. Oh, that's pretty good. My panhandle's not very great. You got that one a little better.
Yeah, well, I could draw my district. It looks like a kneeling elephant because, gerrymandering and all that.
Yeah, your district is rather one of the craziest ones, I think. It's crazy. It goes all the way to San Antonio. And
it goes west all the way to Kerr County and Rial County, about 3 hours away. So from tippy point to tippy point. And that's one of the things I hope that we're going to be able to resolve, because we are going to flip the Texas House. Let me just say that again. We are going to flip the Texas House. And that means we're finally going to have a voice in redistricting. And that gives each voter more power to choose who it is that will represent them and have a real opportunity to choose someone who will reflect your values. So I am really excited about what the future holds because of our power to put those Democrats into the Texas House and finally give us a voice in how our districts will be drawn.
Absolutely. So make sure you vote all the way down ballot, blue all the way. We got to get everyone in. Wendy needs an army behind her. And speaking of that, Wendy, where can people find you? Where can people get involved in your campaign? Where can they give you money? Can you drop your socials, your website?
Sure. So Wendy at wendydavisforcongress.com is my email. If you want to reach out to me specifically, wendydavisforcongress.com is our website where you can sign up to volunteer. We really do need a lot of volunteers going into these final days just to make sure we get absolutely every vote out that we can. There's still a ton of people who have not voted in Travis County that we need to get out, Bexar County, and all up and down the I-35 corridor as well. So come join us. It's not hard. We have a dialer. It makes it really easy, and you can bang through a ton of calls, and it just really makes a difference to reach out to a voter and tell them why you're supporting a candidate and why you hope they will too. And of course, at this late stage in the game, mostly what we're doing is calling people we already know are great Democratic supporters, and we're encouraging them to make sure they get out and vote and make their voting plan.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. Everybody go vote. Find your voting location at mytexasvotes.com. Wendy, I cannot wait to have you as my representative and have your amazing abilities, backgrounds, and talents in DC, really representing the people of Texas and really creating a more equal and just place for all of us. So thank you again so much. And best of luck out there.
Thank you, James. Thank you to everyone. Y'all be safe. Wear your
All
mask.
right, wear your mask. All right, bye, Wendy.